Greetings. Greetings.
Blessings.
So, peace to everyone. I am Akasha Shet, and welcome back to MaatSpeaks, and welcome back to my sister here, Sister Neff. Thank you for joining me today.
Blessings.
Um,
Thank you.
yes. Anyone who is new here, welcome back to My Speaks, where healing, truth, and community remain the mission. Today we have a special Ma'at Wednesday for you. So Ma'at Wednesday was initially created to teach and to educate ourselves on the principles of Ma'at. And really, Ma'at Wednesday was really just about teaching our community and educating those principles on a deeper level. So, with that being said, I thought no better way to have this important discussion than with my fellow teacher here, my sister here now. So, welcome. Tell us how you are doing.
I'm doing great. I'm feeling really excited to be back on YouTube actually. So shout out to anyone who's tuning in from the Tehutima Art page. I have been on a bit of a hiatus, but um feeling really great, really focusing on myself and yeah, coming into a new era. I would categorize this season as a rebirthing of
Mm,
going through a lot of processing around the ways that I've been in service and the healing
mm,
around sacrificing myself in service and coming into centering myself in service. So
mm. Yes. Yeah, I'm thankful for you to be here. So thank you for coming in. And I mean, we hopped on a call the other day, and then I was like, hey, can we do this Wednesday? so, I do appreciate you being here. And so, as you all know, if you have tuned into this conversation, we're going to be discussing India Ari's comments about Young Miami's lyrics, Spend That. So, that is, yeah, something that I've been wanting to discuss, and I thought my sister here would be a great addition to the conversation. So, with that being said, let's jump right into it. Let's first start with what India Ari initially said. And it's kind of funny that when I first heard that she said anything, because I did not watch the BET Awards, and I heard what Indiara said, and she has kind of received backlash over things that she has said in the past.
mhm.
And I remember initially just thinking, yeah, she right. Whatever she said, she right. So after kind of hearing the conversation for a while, I was like, okay, well, let me see what's actually was said and let me dive a little deeper and then listening to other people talk about it. So let's first look at what India Ari actually says. So let's bring up her um, words here. All right. So initially, so if you see her Instagram here, she said, just so y'all know, this is literally all I said. Yeah, that's all. So this is after her initial comments. She said, I'm calling for a boycott of Young Miami's song Spin That. I believe it's degrading to our culture.
Wait, wait,
Mhm.
sis. So she didn't say that. Someone else said that. Mrs. MJ Tedla. That first part that says I'm calling for a
Oh,
boycott, which is interesting.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I see. Okay. Got you. So let's read through this. You're right. So I believe it's degrading to our culture. At some point, we have to take seriously the power music has over our perception and values it reinforces. This can't be the song of the summer. And India Ari said, I spent my entire adult life caring way too much because I finally learned that not everybody cares with a capital C, and explaining it to them is not going to make them care. Everything you listen to, see, or eat is going to influence you. So make wise choices, y'all. I want to dive into that in a little bit, but I'm going to keep reading the rest of this. Uh-oh. Hold on. Nope. I went too far. Uh, there we go. I finally realized that not everybody wants to get free. And it was a very, very, very rude awakening, shaking my head because the mass acceptance of this song is a crystal clear sign of this much bigger truth. All right. So, and these are just people who have commented. All right. So I want to go back to the first thing. I want to go back to actually both things that she said. Everything you listen to, see, or eat is going to influence you. So make wise choices, y'all. And I think we have to understand who remove this, who India Arie is in the first place in order to make these type of comments, which if you even understand her music, you understand what she has been speaking and spreading throughout her career. Even the backlash she got from the Essence Festival when she called out Megan Thee Stallion, and I can't remember who the other ones were on the stage, but when she received backlash for that, because there is this mass acceptance of what is popular over what is actually healing and actually what is, let's just even say, the other side of that is what is harmful. So the idea that if I like it, this goes for music, this goes for food, this goes for entertainment, this goes for people. As long as it's accepted by the masses, it seems to be something that I'm going to accept. And I don't want to look at it as being that deep because I enjoy participating in this particular thing. So I want to get your take on that, sis, on the idea of what the initial statement that she made.
Okay, so thank you again, sis, for
Mhm,
having me for the conversation today. And I appreciate you bringing it up for context for anyone who's not fully up to
mhm,
speed on what was happening. I thought it was really interesting how at first, like, because I think a lot of people were interpreting the boycott coming from India Arie, and I think
mhm,
that's what people like kind of
mm.
jumped on her
Right,
about
right.
because they felt like, how dare you boycott?
Yep.
Some initial feelings that I have are it's frustrating to me sometimes, like where we feel we have to have these like blind loyalties to our people. I've never been like I'm rooting for everybody black. Sorry,
Oh, that's a whole
controversial,
nother
I guess.
conversation I want to have. Yes.
I just there's just certain shit
Yeah.
that I
No, you're
censor
good.
myself. I think what's really interesting about it is, all right, on the note of Ma'at,
Hmm.
for people who do not know me, know who I am, um, I live this. Like I live Ma'at in the sense of wholeness. And there aren't
Hmm.
parts of myself that I'm compartmentalizing. I'm not putting things into the shadow. I'm not performing my spirituality. I exist in the truth of what I am and where I am.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
in that, it allows me to also recognize and acknowledge and allow people to live within the reality and the truth of who and what they are.
Hmm.
Performance is something different. The truth of what you are, the reality is most people walking the earth right now are
Yeah.
walking around with a massive shadow that
Yeah.
they don't even recognize because they don't allow themselves to be whole in the truth of what they are. They feel like they have to
Hmm.
show up in different ways. I give that disclaimer just because sometimes it can be like surprising or jolting for people because they feel like spiritual people, and I'm sure with India Ari, maybe that's how people interpreted her, like,
Yeah.
oh, don't be controversial, you should be supporting everybody, or you're black elite, or however they
Hmm.
may perceive her, right? And they want to put her in a box. Everybody has opinions. So to me, it is very important that um I think the overarching thing is people have this perspective like that hive mind where it's like we have to
Yeah.
keep our mouths shut when we're doing something that's inappropriate, which, there could be an argument made about that in terms of when that's appropriate. There was a sister that I saw who had a critique, who misinterpreted it also. She thought that India Arie had called for the boycott, and she was like, she didn't call Young Miami. She didn't. And I agree with that. Like, before you go
Yeah.
take it to the internet as a public figure, there's a different level of responsibility that she
Mm-hmm.
has, as a role model, because she's aware of that, right? She has that level of consciousness. So I'm sure she
Mm-hmm.
overstands that.
Yeah.
um I did still feel like, yeah, if you're gonna go there, like, have a conversation with the sister. I don't know what private conversation she has with young up and coming artists. We don't know that reality,
Mm-hmm.
if she is calling
Mm-hmm.
people or expressing these things or trying to
Mm-hmm.
mentor people. But it did come off initially, because of the misinterpretation, she was responding to that message about the boycott, expressing
Yes.
how she felt. And yeah, I don't think it's wrong either if she did express that she felt that we should boycott it. I think, yes, that would have been a lot worse, because it's like, okay, now you're bringing momentum to it, and you're creating a movement, right? You're directing people,
Yeah.
you're using your power to direct energy against it, which I don't think would have been really wrong either. I think it would have actually been
Yeah.
interesting to see that
But
unfold.
even if you look at that, her name was Miss MJ Tedla, who actually said that. She did not say boycott Young Miami. She said
Mhm.
boycott the song. So even within that context, what does boycotting a song actually mean? It just means stop listening to it and stop playing it and stop giving it energy. So I think that within that context, understanding that boycotting something, we think of boycott only when we talk about going into certain establishments, right? So there was a recent boycott of Asian establishments, right? And so it's like, yeah, because that requires a lot more of resources and energy. But you can easily boycott a song, and no one said to actually boycott Young Miami as a totality of a person. It was that particular song because of I guess because of the fact that she won an award for it, all those, different things, right? So I think even within that context, and I agree with you, because it would have been more severe for India Ari to say that, and I think it received so much backlash because
She might as well have.
she entered the conversation, right? And but how she entered the conversation is important too, because she didn't enter it as in, I need to come in and yeah, let's do this, let's create a boycott of this artist, so she entered the conversation respectfully. And I think
Yeah.
that's another point that we can make. Now she also says, I finally realized that not everybody wants to get free. And she talked about the rude awakening and the mass acceptance of this song. We're talking about Young Miami song Spin That, but honestly, this is an issue across the board in many other artists. So I think I'm going to go ahead and play this video where it's the first few seconds, and there's a critique of India Ari, and it's kind of pertaining to that. So
Okay.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
play
that's
that.
what that was gonna be one of the things that I said, but I'll watch the
Oh,
video.
no, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. If you,
No, because I can connect with, and I comprehend, like, the resistance around it, where people feel
Mhm.
like, um, yeah, why now? Why her? You know,
Yeah.
you're not critiquing all the other people, which I don't think is the reality. I think she has critiqued other people. But,
Uh-huh.
like, I get that, because we can't disconnect the fact that saying to boycott the song, or expressing criticism of the negativity of the song, which is essentially what is happening in the overall
Mhm.
conversation. That's what's splitting the culture, is like
Yeah.
the people who want to acknowledge that, and the people who kind of just feel like, so what?
Yeah.
I think that there is an impact on her as an artist by
Mm,
boycotting the song. But
right.
I mean, it's not like she has other songs that, I don't know. I can't say I know all of her music, but for the most part, for her as an artist, I think that is still her persona, so to say, and probably like her actual character, you know, who she is and what most of her music is vibrating is at that frequency, I'm pretty sure. So there is an aspect of it that feels like a personal attack. That's what I wanted to say. That's why I get how people feel emotionally like connected to it, especially how people
Mhm.
get with music and artists and like have this like emotional connection to it,
Yeah,
and maybe also
yeah.
feel shamed as well. I think that that's another piece. But since you have a clip to play, I won't elaborate on that
Yeah,
part. I
yeah.
feel like
Like,
it'll
and
give listeners.
just to piggyback off what you're saying real quick, like that is important because context matters. So if we disconnect her conversation from who she is in totality, then we're like, oh, she's picking on this artist. But if we understand that India Ari has voiced this for years, it's also depicted in her music, then we have to even understand that the context around it is because of the BET Awards. This came, if I'm not mistaken, it came the day after, maybe the same day. I don't know because I didn't watch the BET Awards, um, but it came right after the BET Awards. And you see, so I'm gonna play the clip real quick. There is a greetings to everyone who has shown up so far. Thank you for tuning in. If you have not done so already, subscribe to MaatSpeaks, subscribe to Tahuti Maat, and like and comment as well. And yeah, so she I'm read this comment real quick. She said, is she talking about just this song or just in general? Because if so, we should be hearing a lot more from her in the future. Yeah. And that's the thing. The last thing I remember her getting a lot of backlash was the Essence Awards, which if I'm not I mean not the Essence Awards, the Essence Festival. And I can't remember how long ago that was, but I remember that was one of the things with Megan Thee Stallion and whoever else was on stage. So, and a lot of people did not like that they said she was policing women's bodies, right? So I think
I
that we have to,
vaguely remember that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, to be fair, to be balanced, I
yeah,
feel like we really don't know what are all the other conversations that are being had. Every
hmm,
single comment on well, that's not Instagram. Every
exactly,
comment on Twitter or whatever that she's responding to, we really don't know.
exactly. We just
But
know
yeah,
this
to
one.
her, to the commenter's point, yeah, I'm sure we've heard a lot from her in the past, and
Hmm.
there's a lot more that she will continue to say if that's just her general position that she lives by. But of
I was
course, it's going to
2023.
be in those big moments where it becomes controversial that the general public is going to be brought into her sphere, which is why she's reaching now an audience that she's probably not even talking to. You know, based on her own words and what she's saying, she's like, "Listen, I know you're far gone, and I ain't even gonna bother," which I think is offensive to people too.
Yeah.
Like people feel a way about that as well.
And social media is a whole different beast now. Things that somebody may say in an interview is going to be different than somebody responding to a comment or putting something on their page. People will screenshot it and it becomes the news. So yeah, I think that we have to understand that even things that she may have said, again, like you brought up, we don't know what she has said to certain artists, the relationships that she has with other young artists and things like that. So there's a lot of conversations where we're like, oh, this person is picking on this particular demographic or this person. And this is the same conversation that happens when someone gets like you have I'm gonna, not to get off track, because young Miami was attached to Diddy, right? So when Diddy came under, we'll get into some other conversations with that. But when Diddy started getting in trouble, what did a lot of people in the community say? They said, well, what about the white people who do the same thing? So a lot of times when somebody who is black comes under in our community, because that's what we're talking about, when they come under like they're being scrutinized, uh, it's like, well, what about this other person who has done this horrific thing? They didn't get in trouble. So why are you trying to get our people in trouble? So again, we have to think about integrity as well in our community, because accountability is tied to integrity. A lot of times when we start talking about accountability and it's not applied, because there's a lot of times accountability not being applied to integrity. But this is very important to understand when we start talking about the idea of accountability. And then you ask the question, is this person equipped to hold another person accountable? If this was some, I can name plenty of artists who you may look at as, this person is not equipped to really be having this discussion. But ask yourself, is India Arie equipped to have this kind of conversation? She equipped to hold another artist accountable? So I think we have to start there. But did you have
Yeah,
something?
and is that even her responsibility?
Right. Yes.
Because I'm also looking at some of the comments, and there's a sister Sharice that's making some like valid adding some valid points. But I just
Hmm.
wanted to speak just on an educational note,
Okay.
around like rooting us in like values, because
Hmm.
that's what the conversation ultimately really is going to boil down to. But you mentioned the accountability piece and the deflection that tends to happen. It's like we want to protect our people, like, and I get that, and I can connect with that. When I said earlier, like, the idea of like rooting for everyone and everything means you're not taking a position, right? And when we don't have a filter and we don't have a set of values and standards that we hold ourselves to, um,
Hmm.
that's very dangerous territory. And that's
Yeah.
what culture is for. The thing is, sometimes we have a difficulty distinguishing what is our culture and
Yeah.
what is the culture that we're in survival mode, or the culture that's been imposed on us, the culture that we're kind of being socially engineered into.
Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
a different thing. Sometimes we really stake claim and we try to protect the master's house. That's
Right.
really the problem.
Right.
um but what I wanted to share in terms of like you lifting that and the accountability is, so for those of you who are here from MaatSpeaks, the channel that we have, our co-op is called Tehuti Maat. And for those who don't know, Tehuti or Tehuti Jehuti, um for those who are familiar with like more of the Greek interpretation, thoth is the root word of the word that we have today as thought.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
is the complementary energy or force or principle that goes along with Ma'at. So if you're
Yeah.
here, I imagine you're familiar with the principle of Ma'at as a principle of truth, of justice, of reciprocity, of balance, order, wholeness. Ma'at, obviously, ancestrally, our vastness in our
Exactly.
morality
Right.
is such that there
Exactly.
was not one word, no one English
Exactly.
word that can encapsulate that. Likewise, with the complementary energy, most of the principles in Kemetic science have complementary energy. You'll have a masculine, which is an active principle, if we think about it scientifically, but the way we depicted it was through personifying it, right? A lot of these principles were shown as priests with masks of different animals and things. So you
Hmm.
can see, okay, is this masculine, is this feminine? How do you connect with it in your humanity, in your lived life? Because the whole point was for you to be and embody the divinity, right? So you have to be able to connect it to yourself. So the complement has the masculine and the feminine. The feminine is the receptive aspect of the energy, right? So if you just think about
Hmm.
it in pure magnetism, in pure science, right? In order to have electricity, right? In order to have energy, you have these two complementary elements, right? The
Yeah.
active and the receptive. And there's an interplay of both, and we know that that's what creates life. Um, that being said, Ma'at has Tehuti. One of the main aspects of Tehuti is accountability, but
Yeah.
Tehuti is depicted as the scribe, right?
Hmm.
Right. Because what? You're accountable to everything you've done. Tehuti is keeping a record. Tehuti is a principle, though. It's a principle of intellect, of knowledge,
Hmm.
right? But beyond knowledge and intelligence, it's also communication. It's anything that has to do with expression. It's a
Hmm.
vast principle, but that represents accountability. You need the masculine aspect, that accountability, in order to hold the heart, right? The integrity. Because Tehuti is the
Yes.
mind, Ma'at is the heart. So when you have the
Mhm.
judgment scene and you see Ma'at, you see on the scales of Ma'at, you see the heart and you see the feather of Ma'at. You also always see the priest wearing the mask of the ibis, because
Mhm.
ibis word
Mhm.
as Tehuti, writing, okay, what did Anpu, the one with the jackal who's sniffing out, like, okay, is actually discerning, is this heart lighter than this feather? And it's written, because everything that we ever do, every choice that we make, has repercussions. There's consequences to our actions. Everything will be written, and that's how Ma'at proceeds. It's like you, whatever you're gonna reap what you sow.
Yeah.
So I wanted to offer that, especially like early on where we are here,
Yeah.
because there's a certain tone and energy that we're bringing to this conversation. Many people are talking about this conversation. There's a deeper aspect of it that I think
Yes.
is important for us to get to it, and I do think it is about our values.
Yes. Thank you for that. And thank you for that, because I think that that is what this conversation is about, right? We're talking about not just talking about the conversation just to be talking about it, but actually how we are going to apply this to our community and to our lives. And if we don't have the context around morality and values, accountability, all these things that are a part of our culture, right? Then we also do not know how to embody them. And so we end up having the conversation around the topic, and we can say who is right and who is wrong, but we are not actually understanding how we are applying this to our into our lives, into our walk, into our ma'atic walk. And so I'm gonna come back to the comments, because I do see a couple interesting comments, but I'm gonna go ahead and play the beginning of this video, just the first few seconds, just so that we can address something here. All right, so um 1 second, y'all. All right, so
the popularity of Young Miami's Spin That Hit, Young Miami herself looks to have finally responded back with her thoughts about Arie's comments and any backlash people have about the song. On Wednesday, the rapper would reshare a post directly responding to Indie Arie, dissing her song's success. The post would go on to say, "Enough. There have been so many more successful songs about murder, the disrespect of women, drug use/dealing, etc. But Carisha's song about checks, notes, stealing, from what you can infer to be major corporations at that, and tricking is the problem with our community? Please."
okay, so that's where I wanted to go with that, right? And so here we are. I'm gonna see if I can go back to that screen.
You know what's so funny to me? And I'm glad I've been hearing this a lot when people say two things can be true at the same time. It's so interesting how, yeah, how we have a hard time with that, which is interesting, because another
Mhm.
piece of the conversation that I know you were mentioning was colonized thinking, and I
Yeah.
think that's a critique that people have had about Indiari.
Mhm.
But in general, like when I talk about that socially engineered culture and the aspect of the culture that we kind of embraced, that
Yeah.
is honestly humiliating. It's
Yeah.
humiliating. It is what's creating, like, there's a person in the chat that was like, the song's destructive, our youth are already mass incarcerated, right? Like, when we
Mhm.
think about the reality of us watching what's happening to our people, and the way that, you know we're not exercising, we're giving out, we're we have so much parasitic energy feeding
Yeah.
on our power, that
Yeah.
we don't even have enough power and energy as a collective to prevent ourselves from being humiliated on the world stage, where constantly, we're being shown the abuse and the destruction of our people, really. That's beyond us even participating in it, right? There's an aspect of the Eurocentricity that I feel like sometimes like people may, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, critique around India Ari, that also is present with like a mindset like this, right?
Mhm.
We have so many problems in our community. We
Yeah.
don't need to add any. And honestly, sometimes the ranking of like what's worse and what's priority, everybody feels called to a different issue. Some people don't get feel called to any issue at all.
Yeah.
But one of the issues that I have with people who are aware, right, the so-called conscious community, is this like dysfunction and disunity around the issues that we have to address. We have so many problems, which means we have many solutions. They're all opportunities, they're all ways that we need to heal. If someone's focusing on growing food and someone's focusing on the political front, there's no need to compete within that. Like they're all issues that we need to address. That's part of holistic thinking. When we're talking about ma'at, you can
Mm,
hold the full spectrum of truth. There's a spectrum of truth, and
right.
it's not each person gets their individual truth, which doesn't allow us to be accountable. That's another way people are interpreting truth. But yes, multiple things can be true at the same time. And the truth has space and grace for the lie. But there's a certain point where, yeah, you got to look at the reality of the situation and make an assessment. Ma'at is about synthesizing information. You look at the whole thing, but then you synthesize it based on the moment that you're in. What is appropriate? The righteousness isn't fixed. You decide what is right based on the moment that you're meeting. And
Mm,
us in a degenerate cycle where, yes, we're dealing with this plethora of issues. Is that what we need to be affirmed in the collective through music and entrancing people?
mm,
Obviously not.
right. 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 So so I want to look at just touch on this because we kind of already touched on it a little bit, but what she says, there have been many more successful songs about murder, the disrespect of women, drug use or dealing, etc. But her song stealing from what you can infer to be major corporations at that and tricking the problems with our community. Now we're going to look at the lyrics a little bit. We're going to look at the lyrics. But I want us to, if you have listened to the lyrics or you have read the lyrics, I didn't really actually listen to the song per se. I've heard a few seconds of the song, but I didn't actually. I don't, I don't listen to Young Miami. So
Can I mention this?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just because it was I'll burden everyone's heart with what I had to listen to. I watched a clip that was a compilation of all these children singing the song. That's that was very interesting.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. So okay. So the part that I want to hone in on is what you can infer to be major corporations at that, and tricking is the problem with our community. So for from the song, there is no insinuation that she is talking about scamming corporations. People scam the people that they have are closest in proximity to. And we know in our community, the people who scam us the most can be the people that we are going to, as far as who decides who is going to who's deciding to mark up a price. A lot of times things are marked up in our community, and who are, so when we started talking about the Black first idea and going to Black owned restaurants or Black owned stores, a lot of the times the people who are quote unquote scamming us are the people that do look like us. Now, am I saying white people don't scam? Of course they do, right? But that's a lot of times where Black people are learning it from. I was dealing with a situation with a Black business in Atlanta, right? And one of the things that the Black owner said to me was, shoot, we gotta learn, we can learn from these white people, right? That white people, they always do these types of things. So when you listen to the lyrics and you're talking about scamming, who are you, who is she talking about scamming? Because nowhere in there does it say that we're scamming big corporations. It just
Yeah.
tells you to scam. So I think that
Yeah.
like the issue is because I see here where she said, hold on, I'm gonna go to one of the comments real quick. uh Okay, she said the lyrics aren't. I just looked at the lyrics, but oh no, that not that one. She said the lyrics aren't even the worst I've heard. And a lot of times that is how we end up changing the conversation, because we're changing the conversation and saying, well, I've heard worse lyrics. That is true. I have heard worse lyrics. But the conversation that we're having is about this particular song that won an award, that is being played
Yeah, it's
by,
being exalted.
right, it's being played and exalted, because a lot of times there are critiques when it comes to certain conversations. You can sit here and we can critique different hip hop artists, and then we have to understand why this this concept of exalting a song or exalting a person even come from, why we even think that this is a thing to do, where we exalt a song, and then when someone critiques it, then we say, well, that's not the worst in our community, that's not the thing, and
And that's embarrassing on top of
right.
that. Like, the fact that you want to admit that is more fuel for the point that you're trying to contradict. But sis, I don't I want to water what you're saying. I'm feeling it's like at the tip of the micro. For the record, let's put it on the record. Yes, there are worse songs.
Yes,
We're
yes,
talking about
absolutely,
the drugs, the gangs, the
absolutely.
murder, all of it. The delinquent, deviancy, the
Hmm.
hypersexualization, whatever those things are that we want to uplift, right? Yes, there are worse songs. And a lot of it is, yeah, toxic, for lack of a
Yeah,
better way of putting it. So yeah, we could put that on the record. And I think that that's important, like being able to like stay in the room with the conversation. Because part of, there was a sister that had, when you had asked, like, is India Arie capable? And I think I had said, is she even responsible? But someone
hmm,
had said, oh, it was Cherise. She's absolutely not equipped. I have to agree with that. I don't think she's equipped because, let me tell you the level, like,
hmm,
I gets in the mud. You know,
yeah,
like there's a reality to there's a problem when we like feel like the reason why it comes off as like, oh, you think you're better than us.
yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
it's true, sometimes it's not. You could show up in a
Hmm.
space and just be who you are and people feel a
Right.
way about it. But there is a bit of that kind of like, oh, it's beneath me, and it's expressed in the tone and in part of the words of what she's saying. So I don't think she's able to meet our people where we need to be met to have the conversation, because a
Okay.
huge part of it is you have to be willing to educate. When you meet ignorance, it's not, oh, they're just ignorant, whatever. Like, if your intention is for us, you realize we're one collective body, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to be liberated. We are healing. There's all these different, if that's, the intent.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that intent. But yeah, if you're trying to uplift somehow this like light and express that, but you're coming from a hopeless place where you don't feel like the people are ever going to get it or whatever, like, it's kind of like you're
Yeah,
already coming into
you're
the
coming from
conversation
a
defeated.
defeatist mindset, right? Which
It's
is a problem that
defeated, and
I
then it
do.
does come off
Yeah.
as being like, which to an extent, yeah, self-preservation, like everybody preserve themselves. But the reason why I said I get in the mud is because when I look at that comment, like, let's keep it real. That's the thing that bothers me. I'm from the hood. I'm in the hood. I would say
Hmm.
the only difference now is I'm in the country. But
Right.
currently in this moment, I'm in the hood that I grew up in.
Hmm.
And the reality is I know people who are
Yeah.
scammers.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
reality of scamming that you were lifting is important. Even if you're going into a store, I'm talking about in the hood in the extent, like, and to some extent, like, I've questioned like my participation in that economy. Sometimes someone shows up on my door with a bag full of stuff
Yeah.
for the low.
Yeah.
So there's a reality of like the accountability across the spectrum. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so I can recognize where I participate in it, so I can connect to it. but I don't feel like, oh, I'm ashamed or anything. I could meet it where it's at. I also move through this neighborhood with compassion, in the sense that I recognize and I know why the people are doing what they're doing. I
Mm-hmm.
take a certain approach because my work is holistic. There are
Yeah.
different levels and layers to how we have to address the thing. And if you want to preserve yourself, you kind of have to go to the foundational issues. You
Mm-hmm.
can't just try to immediately go to the like try to band-aid the problem, because it's so deeply rooted. It's a
Yeah.
deep rot. The reason why I just wanted to bring that up is because I think it's important. It expresses like where Indiari might be a little bit like disconnected from it, or maybe just disillusioned, because I imagine like she's been going through this. So I'm also not trying, like, it's not a hard on critique on her, but it is part of the truth. Like, where she's coming from and how she's entering the conversation, I don't think is coming from a place of like connection and like, but she may not have the capacity for that, and that's fine. She doesn't have to. She could still have her opinion. Doesn't make her wrong. But to meet ignorance, like, you have to be willing to like get in the mud with it, and be able to like speak to the reality of it, or it will swallow you. It will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like, not everybody wants to be in the mud,
Yeah.
slinging mud, but
So I don't want to get into because I see the comments in the chat. So I don't want to necessarily censor the chat per se, right? I do agree where Keon says she may be equipped to shed light. So I think that we have to, because just as India Arie is disconnected because she's a celebrity, we're not in the same sphere as celebrities. Um, that's the same thing, because I know earlier in the chat someone said that her music is what is it? Is positive, but it's not conscious. Now, consciousness is like a stream, right? Like, you could dip your toe into consciousness, and there's different levels of consciousness. So what we really have to have the conversation around is her music spiritual, and is it helping or is it harmful? Because when we get into whether all music is not going to be political, like, there are some music that's going to be political. We have our political music, we have our political artists, and then we have our spiritual artists. We have our artists that are just there to entertain. So we have to understand if what we're hearing from India Ari, is it helping the conversation? Is it pushing the conversation forward? Because I agree, we have to bring context back. India Ari was not the first person to talk about this. She was commenting on something. So when we say that, well, she's not actually having the conversation, how do you want her to have the conversation? Now, she has put out videos since then, talking about her viewpoint. I wasn't going to bring all the videos into the conversation, but I do think that we have to understand that people are going to speak to things on the level of where they are and their level of consciousness, and how they feel like that they can affect the situation. And so her initial critique, the initial critique that came of Young Miami's song, which is a valid critique, is not um is not something that we like fully dismiss, and it wasn't hers in the first place. It's only become hers because someone decided she had the name with the most cachet. Like, she just like Keon said in the chat, like, her name comes with the most influence in the person who originally said it. And again, context is because of the BET Awards. Now, I didn't see all the BET Awards. I don't know who else won awards. There probably was just as much toxic music that won awards than Spin That, right? But I think that if we're going to continue the conversation, I do think that while I agree to an extent that it may not be her equipped to have the conversation the way that we're trying to have the conversation, right? Because I really don't know India Arie's beliefs, right? I never heard India Arie talk about Ma'at, right? So there are artists that I have actually heard talk about Ma'at, John 9 being one, right? But she doesn't have the mass appeal of the as India Ari does. Does India Ari have the responsibility? That's based off of India Ari, technically. But at the end of the day, she has taken on that responsibility in her own self and in her own way. And so there's a lot of times where we end up judging the judgment, right, in the way that it's being perceived, but we're not always looking at the conversation that is at hand and how do we address this. Because when we bring up one piece of thing in our culture, and we can argue if this is our culture or not, but when we bring up one piece of thing that is being held accountable, this is not necessarily the time to start addressing every single thing that is wrong in our community. This is the time to address this and see how we can move forward. How do we proceed in order to, if we're going to say we're going to let's use the word boycott because that's what she used. That's what the original poster used. Boycott. Are we boycotting the industry? Are you willing to boycott the songs that are harmful to the minds and the ears of our children? Are you going to decide that I'm not going to allow my children to have certain images, having certain frequency, having certain words, affirmations? Because spin that is an affirmation, it's a frequency, it is telling you what to do over and over again. So when we have the conversation, it's not about whether this is the worst song. It's just, is the song harmful or is it helpful to our community? And I can answer that with the fact that it's harmful. And yes, there are as much harmful music out there and harmful artists, and we can address those things in the right type of setting, in the right type of structure. So that's all I wanted to say to that, because I think
truth is the highest form of love. Truth is the highest form of love. A lot of us don't like that love, you know. I have a sister that says like heart truths instead of hard truths. She'll say
yeah,
heart truths because it really takes a lot of heart. Because you know it
right.
takes courage to speak the truth. That's what a lot of people don't recognize. That's why a lot of people
Right.
don't say anything. So I'm glad that she did. We're having this conversation right now because she used her platform, her voice, I'll say, which is her platform, really, because she's a musical recording artist, to speak on this and shine a light on it, and at risk to herself. You know, like look at all the energy, the backlash she's getting. That's all energy.
Right.
And I'm so glad how poignantly you got us to the point,
Yeah.
because all the deflection and the distraction around like having the conversation, like the mudslinging, because that's really like when you get into the low vibration
Right.
of it, it's like it's the mudslinging. All
Yeah.
of that is just avoidance. It doesn't
Yeah.
let us heal. And the reality is, like, I always like to make sure I tell people all the time, the spiritual plane, the spiritual realm is the realm we already won in. It's
Yeah.
our highest battleground. It's like being at the top of the mountain and fighting down. Like you have the advantage. Spiritually, when we look at it, you can detach a bit from the emotions. Like the emotions are going to be cues that like bring you into your humanity. They allow you to connect to the situation. But spiritually, you get to see the whole thing, every layer, the physical, the emotional, the mental. But there's an aspect of it that's purely energetic. Like when we think about why is there so much mudslinging? Why are we trying to distract and bring up all this other stuff to make it seem? It's to disarm you. It's for you to feel defeated. It's so that you don't feel like you can do anything about it. Why
Yeah.
bother? It's like people with cancer. It's like everything causes cancer, so I'm just going to use the microwave.
Oh,
It's like
yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
certain point where
Yeah.
you just feel like, well, damn, you can't
hmm
win.
Yeah.
I'm growing my own
I
food,
can't
but
help
the rain
it.
is
So it's
toxic.
already going to be out there. Somebody's already going to be buying it. That's why a lot of boycotts, people say that, well, what am I going to? I'm just one person, so what good is it going to be for me to boycott this or for me to stop buying this product? It's kind of like with the things with the what is it? polluting the world, right? Like a lot of people are like, well, it's already made, so it's already on the shelves. So we continue to
Yeah, perpetuate it
yeah.
and
So we're
create
gonna go,
demand for it.
yeah.
Your energy is pouring into it, so you're going to expand it. I think that's one of
Exactly.
the things that I think is important when I think about it in the context. It's interesting, like, because my eye is the scales. It's like you can come into a situation, a lot of times we want to be neutral,
Mm-hmm.
or just like stay out of it.
Yeah.
And what is that quote? It's like silence is acquiescence. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not saying anything, you're allowing the thing to persist. So you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
already like you're allowing the thing that's got momentum to keep momentum.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when we look at it in terms of spirituality, like I said, spiritual warfare, that energy wants to continue to exist. So it's going to keep distracting to make you feel defeated. And all these other people who's possessed by that energy, who, like you said, are participating in it to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is out of it enough to like resist it and this be the moment for them to break through. But some people will,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's important.
Yeah.
Some people, it
Yeah.
might have been from Arie saying it. From other people might be from hearing this conversation because they needed to hear a deeper analysis of it. It does have value and it has impact. Every
Mm-hmm.
soul, every being, every ounce of our energy counts. Our attention counts. Everyone who's here with their attention and their energy, like, it's valuable. Nobody's
Yeah.
gonna affirm that for us because they
Yeah.
don't want us to know that. So what sis is saying about, like, do we boycott the music industry? To be honest with you, I don't listen to to music like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm an artist.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thankfully sometimes I've got a circle of people that send me like good things, good vibes.
Mm-hmm.
But it got to the point where, like, I don't even look for music because a lot of the music that I like from, like, the nostalgic music, it is pretty toxic. But
Yeah.
I know how to navigate that for myself, and each person has that responsibility and duty to themselves, and you're going to be accountable to that in your own life because
Yeah.
those frequencies are permeating through your life
Mm-hmm.
and what
Mm-hmm.
you're aligning with and what you're attracting. That's the
Yeah.
reality of how you got to deal with it. So when we look at it as a collective and we see two sides of the scale, why not put energy on the side that we need to win? We need the sun
Mm-hmm.
to shine. We need the sunrise from this night. So, like, if we want to put the energy towards something, I think putting it towards, like, the side of that brings healing, that is speaking to the truth of, like, hey, we don't need this right now, it's not healthy. I think it's every person who contributes to that is valuable.
Yeah. And so before we move on to the next part of the conversation, because she said music tends to be a reflection of the society we live in. Honestly, when I read the lyrics, I hear desperation, survival, and cry for help. So yeah, like music, we have to understand how we are co-creators. A lot of times people look at and we say, oh well, God or a spirit or a net. We talk about like creation as in we don't take part in creation. And so we did. As a collective, we have created this. You can go back years and you can hear a lot of the rhetoric that came out on what hustle culture, like the idea, uh what is it, the get the bag. These are concepts that started really being prevalent over the last decade. And so when you hear that, because I heard a lot of comments come off of the spin that song where people were like, oh yeah, I'm a business owner and I bumped this song, and it gets me hype as a business owner. And again, that is problematic, because are you the type of business owner that scams your clients? So I think that when we have these conversations around like music being a reflection, that is true. What we find important is what we gravitate to, and we end up continuing to kind of what is it, encouraging it into not just ourselves, into the people around us. And again, like if you're gonna talk about it being of music being a real reflection, right? We're talking about entertainment. The entertainment industry as a whole is a reflection. I mean, the show Black Mirrors, right? Black Mirrors. That is a conversation that we have constantly had, and this particular song that we're talking about, because that's what we're talking about right now, is a reflection of our society and what we have accepted as the hostel culture. And that is not, the conscious community is not void of that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Capitalism.
right, right. When
Yeah.
you say, you talked about performing at the beginning of our conversation, there is a lot of performers in the conscious community. There's a lot of or in the wellness spaces, in the spiritual spaces. I mean, even I'm gonna bring up your video and the video that you sent me, because again, what the things that are said even by Young Miami, this is an image that you are portraying to the world, but do you really stand by that image? Do you really stand by that person that you are showing to the world? And who is the music for? So let's understand, as she said, hustle hustle culture is just as toxic. Well, yeah, like that's the thing, because that's what she's talking about. That song is about
Beyond that,
hustle.
it's
Yes,
beyond the
beyond.
hustle culture
Oh,
as well,
right.
because like when you think about it, like you're also getting into like the, yeah, there's a lot of terminology. Well, I don't know if everyone picks up on it, that comes from the space of, you know, hoeing, prostituting, sex work. You
Yeah.
know, like there's a lot of the terminology that's
Yeah.
stems from that, and we kind of like, we're not realizing how much of that is seeping into the culture, because if you're not in that
Yeah.
world, do you really know what you're saying? You know,
Yeah.
some people don't. I mean, many people do, because to the point that someone made, like, this is what resonates with a lot of people, because it's the reality that they live, and
Mhm.
they see this as affirming their humanity, which is true.
Yeah.
And I agree, like the analysis is not, shame has a place, and that's the thing, we can't avoid like creating that. That's a feeling people need to feel, because shame brings change, and there's a reality to that. However, it's not the whole thing, you know? It's not just to like, okay, let's look at what she's saying and like shame her. But there is a reality. If something is shameful, you know, why is that? The shame is based on something, there's a container that has, or a standard that would
Mhm.
even require it to be perceived in that manner. And it's not shameful to everyone. It's shameful to some people, because for some people who have normalized or feel that that is you know, fine, you know, I won't say, I don't know if there are people who are arguing it's positivity. You could even have that. There might be people
Mm.
who feel like that's a positive thing. Get your bag, get your money, whatever. Like there's people who probably really do think that that's a positive
No,
thing. They think hustle
most
culture is
people.
positive.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Like, I live in Atlanta. Hustle culture is a part of the culture, no matter what space. It can be the
If
spiritual,
burnout is
it
not
can be,
sexy.
right, it can be the wellness space, the spiritual space, the fitness space, the whatever space that is here. That, and I had that conversation with you a few years ago. I said, even though Atlanta is a great place where it's like black empowerment, you can come here and you can, people, you can find your space here. I was like, but even in the spiritual and the conscious spaces, there's still that little bit of, I want to practice capitalism to the best of my ability. I want to, like, there are certain things, and this is a separate conversation, but there has to be a critique of the black businesses that are in Atlanta and how
Don't
they
get me
are
started. I
charging,
don't even
but
say
they're
Atlanta, I'm
charging.
saying in general.
Right. Right. Because when I go to other places, right, when I go to other places and I see, like, why are y'all charging this here, but this is not being charged in other areas of the world. So like that's a whole different conversation. So I think okay, so respectability.
Yeah, because
We're gonna
if
change. We're gonna
capitalism is rooted in
uh-huh.
exploitation, you're gonna
Yes,
exploit the people around you. But
exactly,
but
exactly.
in that paradigm, it's like that's normalized. And when that's normalized, then it's like, okay, you're kind of okay. It's like it's a dog eat dog, like kind of like victim, or yeah, we know there's capitalists and then there's victims of capitalism. So it's like when we accept that paradigm, you just position yourself and then everybody wants to be the capitalist,
Yes, yeah.
which
So
is the parasite.
so since we're gonna change the order a little bit,
Are you gonna play the
since
video still?
we're gonna change respectability. The respectability
Yeah, that's a
politics has entered the chat. So let's talk about that first, real quick.
okay.
So I want to read something
That
from.
phrase is so funny to me.
So I want to read something that I saw, and this is a sister who I actually met this sister when I was doing comedic Reiki, and she is she's in the conscious community. She's she's Black conscious sister. So this is what she said. She said, as much as I love India Arie's music, she is a prime example of what I mean when I say people are white male adjacent. You can like whatever you like and you can feel however you want to feel. But the moment you project how you feel and how you move onto another person and tell them how they should feel or move, you're being a colonizer. You have to let people be. Another person's actions, unless they are directly harming you, are none of your business. The more you focus on what you want, the less you see what you don't want. Worry about yourself. So I have two main issues with what she said. Worry about
That's
yourself.
Eurocentric.
Right. Worry about yourself is an individual mentality that is birthed from Eurocentricity, where you are now being the colonizer. Okay. So that's the first issue that I did
I mean,
this
she's
disclaimer.
literally telling her how she should be. She's saying she
Exactly.
should worry about herself when
And
maybe
then
she feels
she
like she should worry
said,
about the village.
unless they are directly harming you. So now we don't even care about the collective. We only care if something is directly harming myself. So this person, in most of the women who I've had have this kind of stance, they have children, right? Like they have children. If they don't have children, they have some nieces, they have some, they're related to children in some form or fashion. And so
Those
you
are
are
also the people who don't want you telling their children nothing either.
exactly, exactly. So you bring this point up and say it's not directly harming me, and that's to be, we can have that conversation because everything you
It
listen
harmed
to,
me.
right, and you come into contact with has the ability to harm. And this is where we get into the conversation of physical harm versus different types of harm, because we're saying that it's just a song, it's not that deep, it's not really harming you because you're not bleeding, you're not bruised. When we know that music, and I think one of the R&B singers, can't think of her name right now. She said music has the ability to heal or harm, right? And so just like we understand that people will go into a space, a spiritual space, it could be a or even church, right? And they break into song, dance, tongues, all of that, right? And they do not and then they say, well, music, if I listen to this other type of music, right, then it has no effect on me. When we understand the power of music and how it does have a spiritual component to it, but also a frequency, it can change your mood, it can keep you rooted in the mood you're in. That's why a lot of people, even when they meditate, what do they put on? They put on certain types of music. So I have an issue with the individualism that is coming from that. But also the next part is, anytime we bring up something that is, or let's just put it this way. When we start talking about cultural accountability, it starts being it's respectability politics, it's whiteness, it's Eurocentric. And the question I have is, if that is the case, when did Africans receive morality? When did Africans have standards before Europeans? They came across Europeans? Because when you start saying that we don't have the right to tell tell people what to listen to and the type of music that you're listening to and how it's affecting not yourself but the youth, you're saying to me that Europeans are your moral compass because you agree with maybe something a European said, that they're the moral compass, and we understand that they are not the moral compass, and we have always had standards. And again, we're not looking at right and wrong in these conversations.
Well, they're the best scammers.
Oh, right, exactly. That's who you learn from. That's who, I'm not gonna say any names right now, but that's where a lot of business owners have learned from. When you look at a lot of the people who have scammed our people, who do they look up to? They can name, you have people who are looking up to what's the guy? The McDonald's, Ray Kroc. He was one of the biggest scammers that have existed, and they have a whole movie about this man acting like he was a good person, right? And he was one of the he scammed them out of their whole business. That's a different conversation. But again, I think that we have to, and I want you to chime in here, because that is the thing where we start talking about something being colonization versus it being accountability, and how we look at that when it comes to being able to hold our people accountable. Because the critique, you're not even really critiquing Young Miami, you're critiquing India Arie. You're not critiquing the lyrics, you're critiquing her politics, you're critiquing whether she's conscious enough, you're critiquing the fact that she's always these saying these things. But when are we going to actually critique the thing that actually needs to be critiqued,
which is really ourselves? That's really what Ma'at means,
right?
Because Ma'at is a moral inventory you do on yourself. Pause.
There it is.
That.
There it
Ma'at is a moral inventory you do on yourself, because your judgments are based on your life, how you see the world, what you've lived through. So that's why I can't blame India Arie for viewing or speaking and entering the conversation from where she's at. I haven't had the attention and the exposure that India Arie has had, right? So I'm sure to a certain extent she knows how to deal with certain things. So she's making the choices, and she's not speaking to everybody. She's speaking to who she's speaking to. And I'm sure she knows how to deal with that and process that, and knows what she's capable of and what she has the capacity for.
Yeah.
Right? Now, everybody enters into the conversation from where they are. You know, like there's a sister in the chat, like, beloved, I know you care about our people. Like, there's a sister in the chat that says something like, we gotta like, how are we gonna deal with the issue? Like, we're in a scamming nation. Like, how are we gonna deal with the issue if we don't know why it's happening? You know, like there's a I could sense in the comments, in the things that are being expressed, that you're entering the conversation from the like, but why? There's a deeper issue here. We're hurting. So you're feeling the pain of our people. Like, that's a reality of where you are and how you can enter the conversation, right? Maybe you're healing yourself. Maybe you're connected to yourself in a way where other people are not, right? Like, maybe for other people, they're living that life. So for them, they feel like they're being attacked. So they're going to come in defensively into the conversation. Right? Like, everything's a reflection of us. And our judgments are a reflection of us, because the judgment is only for you. And it's so interesting because you do reap what you sow. And it's so funny, sometimes I use this quote from the Bible because I really like the aspect of it that comes from Ma'at, which is like, judge not lest ye be judged. Like you're going to be judged and measured from the same metric you are judging others.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So there's that's why grace has its place, but also judgment has its place too, right? But we usually can't judge a thing until it's complete. That's an aspect of ma'at that I think is important to recognize as well. Like the person isn't judged midlife crisis. The person is judged, their heart is placed on the scale after they completed their life and they have their body has died and they are transitioning, their spirit is transitioning, and to determine what the spirit transitions into, they have to account for everything that they did in the life that they just completed, right? So there's a cycle to that, and there's a wisdom to that. But coming back to like the respectability politics and even like the Eurocentricity, like I really echo everything that you said about the importance of recognizing like where that expands into how people are even having the conversation to begin with. Because I think for me, like I think about like, okay, the audience, like who are we talking to? We can be talking to people who are more African centered, who are conscious of that. Like you said, consciousness is a vast thing. Like I could be conscious of one thing and not conscious of another. Exactly. You know, so when you come into a conversation, you're able to be conscious of a lot of things, right? To the sister's point that had mentioned the thing about like, you know, how do we know, you know, like why people are like, it's a cry for help or all of those things. Like there's a reality to that, you know? And for me personally, my approach is that like to come from a healing place, but then to recognize and connect to like, what are the wounds, but also recognize where are these things systemically and how does the problem perpetuate itself within that pain, right? So we could get out of the loop, because it's the economic conditions that we're in that put us in the position to even have to be in a scamming position, right? But it is also that economic paradigm that is fueling itself to keep you stuck in that. So someone coming in, like if you come in and try to pull someone out of that loop and they're in survival mode, you might get clawed up. That's not the correct approach. But if you step back and you look, okay, where's the pain of this? Where are the structural issues? How can we organize ourselves in a way that makes sense? Critical analysis, like you're talking to people who are serious about this. Serious about this, about liberation, and we gonna be victorious in it. So we're not doing band-aid solutions. We're thinking about how do we actually address these issues in a core fundamental way. How do we take the economics into our hands? Food, clothing, shelter, security, energy, the things we actually need. And that's a protracted fight. You know, it's not going to happen overnight. So the band-aid solutions and the people that are going to deal with the things or start these conversations, we need all hands on deck, to what extent that it can be, to facilitate putting more weight on the side of ma'at and less on this chaos we call APP or even isfit, like the things that are out of alignment and out of order. You know, we come into order by each taking our own position. And like I said, the ma'at is the moral inventory you have on yourself. That's the African-centered perspective, I would say. And recognizing, I think one point I always like to make is you can't throw out the proverbial baby with the bathwater. Everything that's Eurocentric is
I wrote that down.
Problematic. Like you have to, we have to know that everything stems from the cradle of Africa. So when we give so much credit to like the intellect, the linear thinking, the writing, the contracts, the agreements, the bureaucracy, the European took, that's Tehuti, we just talked about that. They took this aspect and they centered themselves around it because it was where they're within their fragmentation. That's what they had strengthened, and then they honed in on it. And thankfully, right, there's a reason why everything happens. There's a lot that we've learned from this Eurocentric degenerate cycle that we're in, that we don't need to throw it all out. There's aspects of it that, one, we recognize it was always ours. So thank you. But it's the way that Eurocentricity like separates, right? It thrives on dichotomy, like the separation. That's why I'm saying fragmented. It's fragmented, like it's unwhole, right? it allows us to see the importance of our differences and the distinctions that we do have to make, like how
Yeah.
things are separate. Like we said, the masculine, the feminine. Yeah, it's all whole. We all have masculine and feminine in our whole being, but now we get to look at these particular aspects of ourselves, right? So, yeah, I think that's a lazy, like, dismissal of the India Arie comments. It's just to say that she's Eurocentric.
Yeah,
And
and so when it as a so we all, both of us, we have different expressions, and we carry those in different ways. And so one of my expressions, one of my duties, one of my greatest jobs, right? And it could be a struggle sometimes, but is being a mother, right? And so when we have these conversations and we say we need to look at the roots of a person who is doing harm, I get it. We do. And that is my job to do on myself so that I am not spreading harm to my children or to any other being, any other person. Like me and you talked, and we talked about like having conversations with each other and as sisters, right? We have things that are different, we have things that are similar. And sometimes we focus on the similarities. And you said this beautifully the other day, we focus on the similarities. And I'm sorry, but on the differences. Wait, no, you said the similarities. And it's important to focus on the differences. I had a conversation with my girls earlier, and I said, like a lot of times people do not evolve in relationships or friendships because they want that person to show up the exact same way that they showed up when they first met. And people are constantly evolving and becoming. I say this to say that I understand. I've seen the conversations around young Miami and her mother potentially being a scammer herself. And I understand that young Miami may come from a background, and this idea that the people that are hurt and harm and they spread harm, I get all of that. But I have a duty as a mother and as a person in this community who is tries my best to embody my aunt as best as I can. I have that duty to also make sure that those things are not harming my children, that those things that they are walking into certain situations where they're not constantly being harmed. Because I was at a my daughter, when she went to the International Association of Blacks and Dance in Pittsburgh, and we were at a event, and it was for teenagers. The music I was hearing, now my daughter didn't know any of the music, but almost every teenager in that room knew those lyrics word for word. And so when we start talking about not just critiquing, and we need to look at, yes, there are cultural reasons, there are historical reasons why we are here where we are today. I get all of that. I'm not blaming Black people for being in the situation that they're in, but we do have a duty to look at the patterns. I was telling my girls earlier today, I was saying sometimes you don't recognize patterns um, until you mature and understand that these patterns keep continuing and continuing. And then we have to look at where we are involved in these patterns and saying, okay, is this my time to step off? We educate, me and you. That's what we do. We educate others, not in an attempt to look down on them and place them in a box and saying, "Oh, well, we're better than that." My duty as a mother is to educate my children and to put them in and have them in the right area where they understand what's harmful about this. There are some times where I have to explain to them why certain things are harmful. And yes, we can do two things at once. We can critique if we want to. I don't really I don't I don't feel like critiquing India Ari, honestly. Like if we want to critique India Ari on what she said, even though she wasn't the first person to say it, we can critique that. Because at the end of the day, it's like what is the harm that is done in our community? What is the initial thing that I see that's harmful from this conversation? The harmful thing in this conversation is the lyrics themselves, the fact that they are a micro of the macro that is happening in our community, and also the way that we interact with it, where we say, well, she can't really talk on this topic. She can't really speak up because, her politics are trash. She's not conscious enough. She's constantly belittling other artists. I get it. We can talk about that, and we can discuss her politics at another point, but the conversation is this harmful? Are the lyrics of Spin that is I guess it's a song that has really taken mass appeal, is it harmful to our community, and how else can we understand the harm that is in our community? What else can we look at and understand? Because we can go from thing to thing, entertainment to entertainment. Like, apparently there's a show out right now that's very toxic, Love Island. I've never seen it. I just heard people talk about it. Again, those are things that are harmful. And our children, a lot of our children have access to these things. Do I sit here and I go to the show and I sit and say, well, this person may be doing this, right? Because of their background? No, I'm going to say my child is not going to have access to this. And we're going to discuss why they cannot have access to this. And we're going to continue the conversation and know that, yeah, we are in this situation, over sexualized, continuing to be exploited, not because we put ourselves, in the situation, but we continue to make excuses for it. And that's the issue that I'm having with the conversation, is the constant, and I don't want to use the word excuses, right? We're giving reasons why, but we do have to. Someone's talked about solutions. I do think that we do have the solutions, right? I'm gonna go. My brother Talawa here, peace Talawa. He said it's a challenging convo if we don't have a proper historical and anthropological analysis of what African versus what is not us / European interference, right? That's very true. But we do have Ma'at, right? We do
Yeah,
have,
fundamentally.
like, right, we have those. And I think one of the things, and some people might not like me, but like what I'm about to say, right? But what I see a lot of politics, when it comes to politics, whether, especially in our space as Black, in the Black conscious space, is it's void of the spiritual systems that we already have. And I think we have to dive deeper into how that is important in our politics. Because politics, without our without my let me just say, without my aunt, right? Without Tahuti, right? Without that, is it becomes performance. It can be. I'm not gonna say it's always performative, but can become performative. Because again, where is the balance there? Where's the truth? And where is, because we talk about historically, as far as Africa was a large continent, right? And so we think about the thing, we say, well, this is not African, this is Eurocentric, and we continue to perpetuate morality coming from Europeans. If we continue to say that we can only look at certain things being African, and then anytime someone brings up something that is critiquing, and again, we can use the word judgment, because that is a part of but it is judging yourself. How am I participating? That's a way that you can judge yourself, even when we start talking about these lyrics and talking about the song in the industry, in the music industry. How am I a participant? How am I a functioning participant in the things that we know are harmful? And again, you have to ask yourself. That's why I always tell others, ask yourself, even when it comes to food, I say, is this helping you or is this harming you? I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna let you jump in.
Yeah. I wanted to say to that point, So like to kind of seal that piece around the Eurocentricity, I do agree. There was somebody who put something there. Is this the right forum to boil the ocean? Like, yeah, we can't touch on everything, but we're getting to core fundamental elements, like the bringing in Ma'at and Tehuti as key rooting pieces for us in terms of standards and values, critical. And I feel like that, just to summarize the piece around the Eurocentricity, is recognizing one of the key distinctions is different natures, right? One brings things together. It's both and. You can do two things at the same time. We could deal with the systemic issues and deal with the incremental, changes we can make, right? You don't have to choose either or. That's the Eurocentric, which is the divide, right? It's going to separate. So it's going to be either or. That's fundamentally one of the most critical things that we can just comprehend in order to have the conversation around the Eurocentricity. So if we're looking at the so-called respectability politics, I don't know where that term came from. Sometimes for me, I have an issue with over intellectualizing the thing. And I'm an intellectual. All right. I'm all about, let's go into the history, but it's like, again, the appropriate forum. And sometimes we get too deep, especially in the conscious community, into the intellectual masturbation. And it's no direct, like, creation process of like something actually materializing from the act of bringing the two elements together, and then you create something from it. It's just a constant, like masturbating with the same topics, the same things, and not doing the work, not, actually putting things into play, as I like to say. So my point around that is, yes, it's important to know these things. There's different spaces for that. When it comes to the context of this conversation, is it respectability politics to have standards? We need to have self-respect, period. We need to have dignity, period. If you're going to argue with that, I don't need to have a conversation with you. That's how I feel about it. Now, if you are ready to face that reality, that's a different story, because you can't heal people who don't want to be healed. You can comprehend the issue. You can go to the core of it. You can really examine it and know. But the wise thing to do is going to be stay in your lane and support the people who want and are looking for support, because there are plenty of people who do. There's enough people who do, and you can't carry everyone with you at the same time. Harriet Tubman didn't get everybody off the plantation. She had to threaten to kill people to really be clear about the boundaries and the standards that she had in order to be able to go and come. That's strategy. So that there's an aspect of it that I feel like is also connected to that. So yeah, I think when we're examining the respectability politics, like, where does it cross the line? Use these principles that we just evaluated. Is it holding all the components? Is it in Ma'at? Are we being accountable? Can we, use our own rooted principles? Can we live by them in the way that we think and examine the world that we're in, the choices that we make for ourselves, for our children, for those around us, for our family, for our community? That's what we're talking about when we say nation building. It's not a theoretical thing. It doesn't always have to be intellectualized. We need to start living the truth.
Exactly. So as we go into the next part of the conversation, right? Like, so I'm gonna share the video that you sent, because I think that is a great segue into what we're talking about here. So yeah, let me go ahead and share that here. One moment.
Shout out to Brother Jadorian in the chat.
All right. And let's see. Mm-mm. It's not the sound. I don't know why the sound is not playing here.
When you press it again, does it have the option to press on the mic? No.
I don't see it. Let me actually go to her. Where is this sound at? Okay, let me try it another way. Okay, one moment. Let me see here. All right.
While you're troubleshooting, can I speak on something?
Yeah, go ahead.
What I think is an important distinction too, that takes like a bit of more of a refined analysis on. When we're talking about ma'at, sometimes people struggle with the the two parts, or like what we consider as be like the polarities,
Mm-hmm.
and we see things as being like contradictory, and that's part of what I'm saying is like kind of like the Eurocentric thing, like these things can't coexist, but sometimes
Right.
we do exist in contradiction, and we have to work through and go through a process of integration or wholeness, which means we bring the two parts into whole, right? Because they all they do exist, right? We all have a light and a dark side. It's not that one is bad and one is good, or one is worse and one is better. That's the Eurocentricity, right? The like trying to frame it in a particular way, the narrative of it. The truth is we have both, right? Now, if you're both are in battle with each other, where you feel like you have to put a mask on of one or hide the other, or they're contradicting, like in that sense, right? Where it's like I'm saying one thing, but I'm doing something else behind the scenes. I'm telling everybody we need to detox, but I'm going to Burger King, right? Like that's a clear contradiction. There's a difference between that and the wholeness of holding both aspects of yourself together and actually being
Mm-hmm.
able to integrate it. It's through facing contradiction and through that accountability that we actually have the opportunity to become whole, right? Which to me is the essence of healing. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to express that because it's like it's important for us to have more nuance to the way that we perceive our reality, the choices that we make, the contradictions we experience in our lives, so that we can raise ourselves to a higher standard, so that our life can reflect what we know that we're deserving of, what we know that we are capable of,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even if you don't have the capacity for it, you can build the capacity for it. So part
Yeah.
of it for me is just we know we can do better. So yeah, if we can do better, let's do better. Let's strive to do better.
Yeah, I think I get this also that I get this a lot when it comes to kind of the metaphysics conversation. And so a lot of times people don't like to believe in the idea of manifestation or creating your reality and things like that because of the historical kind of the systems that are in place and the idea of creating a form of reality that is disconnected from the history and the systemic oppression, all of these things, right? And so I think that again, that's why I say that we have to make sure that we are properly placing those things within the same, not within the same, but together, that um we cannot separate the politics, right, from in place that went in one box, and then not actually think about or apply our spiritual practices within that. Because when we separate them, even the spiritual people, right? We have people who are spiritual and they do not want to discuss the politics, and they do believe that you just think your way into to good things, right? So I think that there's both, there's two sides to that. But again, that's why I say we can look at patterns, we can look at cycles, and a lot of us decided to step off of the patterns that were in our personal lives that came from our families, and we decided to transition to change and transition. And sometimes that was somebody holding your hands, and um sometimes that was you being real with yourself, and we all come into this level or into a certain level of consciousness at different times. I say it all the time when I'm teaching. I say that we all enter the room at different levels, right? And we decide and we move at the level that we are entering the room. It doesn't make it right or wrong, per se. It just means that you are coming into the conversation at your level of understanding, and you're moving at your level of understanding. And so we can discuss these issues at hand, and we can try to make sure that we are discussing it within the right context. We don't necessarily want to separate our understanding of Ma'at from the understanding of history, especially when it comes to what we have experienced here on in this plane of existence. But we also want to understand how we move forward, because again, we want to move forward with solutions and not move forward with reasons why we are not where we want to be. And so that's where we even talk about the defeatist mindset. If you constantly have a defeatist mindset, and there's a lot of elders who end up leaving, transitioning, and they do feel defeated, right? I think one of the things that I said recently, I said this thing might outlive me, right? But I still want to try to transfer. We want to transfer the tools that we have to our children, and so that they can transfer the tools to their children, because at some point we do feel that we are going to be whole in where we need to be. So I just wanted to add on to that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the video.
Can
I
I
got
just say this, sis?
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I know we're trying to play the video, but I appreciate you saying that, because I personally feel like I liberation, victory, freedom in my lifetime, and I feel the need to also like inculcate that hope and that clarity and that like audacity, for us, and that's something for me to also value and recognize that
Mm-hmm.
it has value. And hearing you say that allowed me to like recognize like, wow, there's a value to just that little piece right there
Yeah.
that I can echo and reverberate.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I just wanted to give this quote because the spirit of Amilcar Cabral came to me very strongly.
Mm-hmm.
Because the sister in the chat, Hanifa, I hope I said
Mm-hmm.
your name properly, sis. Thank you. Mentioned, I feel like for some of us to get that in theory, but practice is another story. It takes work to integrate in that way for sure. And it's true, right? It takes work, but like that's the part of living, right? Like coming back to our humanity and not making these things like all out
Yeah.
here. Like
Yeah.
the simplification of the thing and us grounding it, like we're not just talking about ma'at, we have to live ma'at. So when we
Yeah.
simplify it in this way, that's the part that makes us, that's the part we have power in. We get to choose what we're putting in our fridge. We get to choose what we're watching, what we're listening to. So there's power in that. And we have to recognize the value of the simple thing of living it out.
Yeah.
And just to finalize, because it brought up Cabral. For those who don't know, Amilcar Cabral is a revolutionary guerrilla warrior, one of the revolutionary spirits who fought for the liberation of Cabo Verde, which is where my lineage in this life is from. He said, always bear in mind that the people are not fighting for ideas, for the things in anyone's head. They are fighting to win material benefits, to live better and in peace, to see their lives go forward, to guarantee the future of their children.
Mm.
That part is so important in recognizing the whole point of this is for us to live better, you know?
Yes.
So part of it, like the decolonizing of the ideas, the value paradigm that we have, and feeling like everything's about getting this money, like all of that, this shines a light on the collective consciousness and where we are and what the actual issues are. So we all get to proceed forward on our path, and we see more clearly where we are. You know,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful opportunity.
Yeah, that's good. Because I think that and I'll say this last thing and I'll play the video, but I think that is important to what you were just saying as far as integration, because as a holistic health guy, one of the things that people tend to come to me about is they're trying to, like Keon said, boil the ocean. And so little by little we can make those small changes in our lives where, again, it's not attacking everything at one time. So when somebody comes to me and says, oh well, I'm having a hard time and I can't do all of this, and we have reasons. I don't want to say excuses. We do have reasons not to do something. We are up against some things in our community in our community and the world around us that is literally trying to poison us, right? And that's why your work is so important with Tahuti Ma'at. Like that's something that is a relevant statement. But again, what part are you participating in, and what part that you can actually, what little thing that you can do and change, because that is what Ma'at is rising each day and thinking about how you are, what are the decisions that you are going to make about your day, and at the end of the day you say, how did I do, right? Like that's my at the most basic level. And so I think that is something that we can come to terms with. Again, it's judgment for yourself. I can sit here and I can judge the, what we're talking about or the decisions that another person makes, but ultimately it's about the decisions that I'm making within myself and in my own paradigm, and how I am addressing these issues, because the issues are there, the systemic issues are there. The things that are in our community are there, but then I ask myself all the time, how am I participating? And that is a daily task. And it's not always an easy task, but it is something that you must do daily. All right, so I'm going to show the video now. All right, one moment, let me get that up. So it says, and to say,
I'm laughing at the person that says she looked like Gabrielle Union. She
The
does.
entertainment industry is teaching women how to become undesirable. And before you get mad, ask yourself this: who benefits when women destroy their image? Not the woman, it's never the women. And before you type it, I'm younger than your favorite rapper. Okay, so now let's look into what's actually being pushed right now. Scamming, boosting, using people, treating relationships like transactions, being loud and reckless and calling it confidence. And it doesn't stop at the music. Women don't just listen to it. They start dressing like it, talking like it, posting like it, until the whole aesthetic becomes a personality they've built without ever choosing it on purpose. Shit. But here's where it gets real interesting. Young Miami, the woman who made an entire brand out of that lifestyle, has said plainly that she does not want her own daughter growing up to be a city girl.
Comes to you as pretty as she is and says, Mom, I want to be a city girl.
She ain't gonna be no city girl.
So Summer ain't allowed to be no city girl?
No. I want her raised totally different. Like, you know, I don't even want her to even see the light of day like that. Like, I really want her to just be like, you know, like level-headed, a schoolgirl, and just on a whole nother ways. Like, you know, I kind of was raised different, so I don't want to raise her up how I was raised. So, you know, I'm a city girl, ain't nothing wrong with it, but I don't want that for my daughter.
Now, just think about this for a second. The woman selling the image doesn't want the image for her own daughter. And now, in her 30s, she wants to get married, wants a husband, wants her kids to grow up watching something steadier than what made her famous.
Like, I didn't want to get married. Now I want to get married. You know, like I don't believe in marriage. I don't want to be nobody's wife. I'm 32 now. Like, at this point, I'm like, okay, I got 2 kids. Like, I do want my kids to experience mom and dad, or mom and someone else.
Because guess what? Eventually, life starts asking different questions than entertainment does. Entertainment rewards attention. Real life rewards reputation. One gets you streams and the other gets you trusted, hired, chosen, and built with. So my advice to you, especially if you are under the age of 30, because if you are over 30, you should have common sense. Stop letting people who are selling a fantasy write the blueprint for your reality. Your image is way too valuable to hand over to an industry that profits off of your confusion. Okay, bye for now. Toodles.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to jump. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciated her like actually putting the videos of Carisha talking for herself, which is also another thing too, right? I said Carisha intentionally.
Yeah.
And not Young Miami, because Young Miami is her persona. It's what she performs as. Not saying that that's not based in some degree of truth of her lived experience, because if you go in deeper to the things that she said in those interviews, she's expressing like the reality that she comes from. I think you had mentioned that her mom used to do the same thing, and she wants better for her child. But the thing is, the way that she's able to create better for her child is through perpetuating this out into the world to other people's children and to the rest of society. So it is still that like survival mode, right? Where it's like, well, I know this ain't the best thing, but I'm also worried about me. And, you know, this is a way for me to get mine. And I'm not, you know, I'm not lying. This is the reality. You know, I know all these boosters and stuff. So like, I'm gonna make a poppin' song about it and whatnot. Like, there's a reality to it. She's not entirely like pulling it out of her, you know, behind. But there is a lot to be said about the fact that she recognizes that she wants better for her children. And the quote that I just read, right? We want better. That's what people actually want. So if we were offered and we were in a different situation, would we be perpetuating a lot of the things that we're okay with right now? Would we have this low standard if we had other options, if the cards weren't stacked in this particular way? You know, we wouldn't. I know we wouldn't, because there's still a part of us. We still have heart, you know, like she's not completely lost and foregone, and we can't judge her fully in this moment, in this season of her life, because she still has a whole life to go. You know, so I'm glad that this conversation is happening, because I'm sure it's creating a conversation for her. She may have a lot of yes men and a lot of people in her mind, but you think there's not something stirring up inside of her? There is, because she knows. It would be different if she was completely oblivious to it, but she's acknowledged with her own words that she sees that this is not, you know, the way to go for her children.
Yeah, because George Holt, he said, why is she influencing other people's daughters in that direction? Then you can speak on something without glamorizing and encouraging it. So I think we understand the music industry, right?
I'm laughing at the comment that says, screw y'all kids, spend that.
Right, that's what I just put up when you were talking. I was like, screw y'all kids. Oh, that is funny to me.
Yeah, it be like that, and that's why you gotta be protective. And sometimes that.
So, what do you think about
ferociousness?
What do you think about this comment? We judge her right now based on her actions right now. So you know, I can be in that energy, right?
I could too. I could too, but I have hope. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the part of me that still has the compassion and the connection to, like, I get why my people are doing that. But don't get me wrong. Like, I'm with the IT, the Haitians, when they had to put the traitors' heads and put them put them on
Hey,
stakes. You know,
okay.
like there's a reality where it gets to a certain point where
Yeah.
like you have to recognize where the compassion, you know, is
Yeah.
limited.
Yeah, and we talked about that recently. We talked about like compassion and having compassion and being able to speak hard truths. I had mentioned that to you. And I think, and I said, one of the things I said to you was a lot of people do not will say you're being harsh when you're speaking hard truths because they don't like the information that is being presented. It can be triggering to you. Because if you have a plate of food in front of you and I tell you that most of the things on your plate is toxic, and then you're going to be like, oh, it's harsh, what am I supposed to eat, all of this, there's so much things, there's the one of the things I get when it comes to like eating plant-based foods or eating like fruits and vegetables, they're like, well, they doing stuff to the fruits and vegetables too, like what we supposed to eat, so like there's not alternatives. So I think that that's the thing where we have to understand, again, that is a self accountability, self judgment call. When you ask yourself, the information that is being presented to me, am I being emotional about it? Is it triggering me? Is this information that this person is giving me, is it actually helping or harming? Now I do believe that you can give information, and I've always had to deal with this because I got an Aries moon, so I got that fire inside of me where I'm trying to I'm giving good information, but it's coming off with that fire. Fire. So I do have to deal with that. But I think that sometimes what we perceive as harshness, and we sometimes deflect from the conversation or the information that is being presented because it's triggering us, or it's in trigger, like, right, like people use trigger as a trigger word. Like a trigger is not something that really actually should be a quote unquote trigger word. It's just because it's been used in these spaces for so much, and people like to use it to upset you. But something that is triggering you or bringing up certain emotions is just a communication. It's just something communicating to you, and you look at it and you say, because I can say, you can say something to me, and you could be like, sis, like I need you to, let's just you. I need you to. You said it early in the conversation. You said, I'm gonna water down what you just said, right? Now I could look at that as like, oh, wait a minute, what do you mean? Or I can look at that as, yeah, she's aiding me, helping me in this moment, and I can look at it as love. I don't have to look at it as like this harsh treatment or that you're trying to correct me. It's just a matter of you being able to recognize something, and let's look at the other side of it, like that. Let's look at how we can be more compassionate in this moment. Now, do I agree with George when he says we can judge her right now on her actions? Absolutely, because when someone says to me that that I know that I don't want my children raised like this, but they're continuing to perpetuate that type of idea to the masses, then I do have.
She's living in a contradiction.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
we all live in contradictions at certain points, at certain times. We are on the internet right now. We do not own this internet space. We are on computers and devices that we know are being put together, and people are being exploited in order to create these devices. That is a hard truth. And how are we participating in the systems that are in play? So I don't think that, again, any of us are devoid, like void of the things. We all live in contradictions at certain times. Again, I always ask, how are you participating in it? And how can we do better? Because eventually, don't we need to get off this internet? Don't we need to
Have
get
higher
off?
standards.
Exactly. At some point, we're going to have to be true with ourselves and say we no longer can participate in the exploitation of our people. This is a part
Yeah.
of it,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. I was thinking, oh, when you said the thing about like when I was like, I'm gonna water your wisdom.
Mhm.
that was something that was like cultivated in community where people didn't want to keep saying, I'm not cutting you off, right?
Oh,
The cutting
okay.
off is the harsh
Yeah.
part. Like, oh, I'm not trying to cut you off, but really, like, what you're saying has got me excited, and I want to
Right.
pour more onto it.
Got you.
But like
Got
you
you.
said,
Okay.
it's so interesting though that yeah, it goes down to perception. And we can't attach ourselves too much, especially if we are going to speak.
Mm-hmm.
When my aunt speaks, everyone's not gonna receive it
That's true.
well. They're gonna perceive it however they perceive it. But it's
Mm-hmm.
still important to express that, especially when they're unpopular opinions. Because right now
Yeah.
we do have to recognize where the masses of our people are. I
Yeah.
just feel that there's a distinction between judging her as a person and judging her actions, right? So that's where I could see a clear distinction. And yes, if she was put on trial, she would have to account for and be judged according to her actions. But yeah, I feel like I personally feel there's space for some grace. But yeah, it's limited, if I'm being honest with you, because I also feel the same way, right? That's part of the duality, the
Yeah.
polarity within me, you know?
Yeah. And so so that video is in I want to touch on that just a little bit more. So that video is interesting because not only is she saying that she does not want her daughter to be a quote unquote city girl, right? But she's saying, oh, I value marriage and I want I want to see my, the things, because that happened with Cardi B too, where Cardi B was sending like a message. I don't listen to Cardi B's music either, but she was like sending a message to people, and then they were like, oh, but she's like being like a housewife and doing all the cooking, and obviously that relationship didn't necessarily last, but at the same time, that is what she was portraying in the background versus what she's portraying in her music. And I want people to understand like that what we're even talking about is the influence that music has. Most people can look at least one to many artists that have had an influence on you in some type of way, whether that was through, most of the time is through the lyrics and the words. And I'm not sure if everyone has seen the words. Like I said, I've only listened to a few seconds of the song because I didn't want to put it into my psyche, but I did read the words. I'm not going to bring them up on the screen because I don't want them on the screen, but I do want us to, I'm just going to like go through some of the words, right? Like, which, I mean, the words, they're terrible words. Like, why are these words together? And so one of the first line is, where all my scamming ass niggas at, right? Spending that money fast, 20s, 50s, hundreds cash. Boy, go in that Goyard bag. So even when I listen to that, what is being perpetuated, scamming, right? So we already discussed that she's talking about scamming. Nowhere in there is it saying scamming corporations. It's just saying this is where are the, and then on top of that, it says 2050s, hundreds cash. Now, a lot of times when we hear about people who have cash, which is why we're on with cash, there's a certain type of mentality that we have about people who carry cash. Like what type of job that they have when they carry cash. So I think that there's things that are being kind of perpetuated in the song that, again, if you dissect the song, what is saying. So then when we go into the chorus part, and she's constantly saying the same thing over and over. I listen to a lot of like affirmation songs sometimes, and we know that affirmation music or affirmation songs, right? What their intent is. So I'm not saying her intent was to tell you to spend money, but who is the song for? You do not live, most of us do not live on the same plane of existence as celebrities. Celebrities and people who they are putting their music out to, they have a goal in mind for you to continue to buy their music or continue to buy whatever thing that they are putting out there. In my
To consume them.
in my analysis, she is trying to tell you to remain a consumer. A consumer of what? Again, who is the music? Who is this song for?
Which makes you a victim.
Right. And so that's a thing where I'm looking at the lyrics and I'm like, yeah, that's an affirmation. She's not telling you, like, she's not giving you an affirmation um of healing, right? She's giving you an affirmation of harm against yourself, because to be a consumer, right, and to constantly consume is a way that you consistently harm yourself, because there are things that we do consume in essence that are helpful to us. But again, when you go down and you read the lyrics, you understand what she's perpetuating: scamming, spending money, making your money by any means necessary, right? And
Yeah,
there's
because the context that she's speaking in is within, the
right.
capitalist paradigm. She is speaking about spending money, the
Mm-hmm.
values of having, I don't know the brand that she said, that particular bag.
Yeah.
Which is another thing.
I had to look that bag up because I was like, what is a go your bag? Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
it's interesting because someone had mentioned earlier, this came up for me when we brought this part
Mhm.
up. Someone had mentioned earlier something about like the white gaze and like the concerns
Yeah.
of the white gaze and whatnot. It's so interesting to me when I think about that, like the whole scamming culture or having like,
Yeah.
I don't know, fake brands, fake Louis, fake Gucci and all of that. It's always been so interesting to me because it's like it's literally buying the perception. It's very interesting when you get into it psychologically, because the level of illusion that is in it all is that the brand itself is selling something that
Mhm.
even if you have a fake version of it or however you got it,
Right.
right? The perception and the gaze is still seen differently. It's not
Mhm.
seen the same, right? It's like, oh, that's
Yeah.
ghetto, that's ratchet, that's tacky, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not even perceived in the same way, but we're still operating at that same like value paradigm where we're like
Yeah.
beneath the thing, but it's like for us it's better than being at the bottom,
Yeah.
like it's a very interesting like psychological
Mhm.
expression of like our desire to be valued and validated, when really the issue, like we said, at heart is the fact that we don't value ourselves enough to
Yeah.
have standards, to exercise our dignity, and to not humiliate ourselves.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And there's a couple people in the chat that have brought up rappers being under contract, and um just even it being invested into private prisons and things like that. And yeah, like there's a lot of even like
Slavery at its finest.
conscious rappers who have talked about that as well. In the hip hop industry, I think we also need, so one of the things that she said at the end of the song, she said get money or die trying, right? And so that's the thing where she's saying to be a slave to your money, right? It's because we value money, we value the idea of being rich. That's why we allow a lot of the celebrities to continue to exploit us, because or we don't want to speak up on the things that a lot of celebrities the the harm that they do in our communities, because they're billionaires, right? Like we have billionaires and we need to acknowledge, we don't need to tear down our Black people, and we don't need to tear them down in the public arena and stuff like that. But we don't have access, well, to celebrities, honestly. And the only way that you can really voice your opinion on the things that that celebrities are doing is by having these conversations and public conversations. If you continue to consume their content or consume their music or consume who they are, then that is telling it energetically, you are telling telling them that it is okay. And there has been an influx of female rappers who are um, imitating the worst of our community, and I will say the worst of the hip hop community, or the worst. So they're imitating this idea of being like the male hip hop artist. In any time, and you see this on both sides. Anytime that you see a person imitating the worst, like of that gender, right? So you have these female rappers who are trying to imitate male rappers, and they're doing it like in this kind of what I would perceive as like this guttural way of being. And so you can even see sometimes, even when you have men who are imitating women, they're imitating the worst of the women. They're imitating, they feel like to imitate a woman, I need to be catty and confrontational. And then you have women who are imitating men who are saying, I need to be rude and disrespectful. So that is something that we have that is being addressed in this song, because when I listen to Meg the Stallion, or what is the other one, Glorilla, all of these women are trying to imitate the worst of our community instead of uplifting or being a presence of um that is being a presence of because I don't want to get into the idea of like masculinity versus femininity, but it's just an imitation of what they perceive is who they need to be in order to get their message across. Because anytime a woman does something that is um harmful in the community, what they'll say is, well, men do it all the time, they get away with it, so we can do it too, and vice versa, right?
Yeah,
But a lot
instead
of
of
times,
seeing the healthy traits of the other sex.
right. Yeah. So, um, yeah. So, with that, right? I want to, because we have made it to about 2 hours here, so I want to make sure that we kind of come to back, bringing it all back to my right, um, aligning it back to what the center is, and even the idea of solutions, and where do we end here, um where do we connect here, so that we can understand how to continue to move forward in this space, especially when a lot of things that we come into contact with is trying to harm us and put us in a certain frequency, a certain vibration, is trying to consume us, right? Like, so I'll let you start there.
Well, I feel like one of the main solutions that I feel viscerally, just from the connection with you, the ways that we're aligned, this being like me coming back online, I
Mhm,
think the main solution here has to be vibrational. It is our
mhm,
voice, but it's also energetic, because I think about like the frequency that connects you and I. It is, we talk about this all the time, the Aust, the Virgo. And I'm not even, I don't even have any Virgo placements in my chart. But
mhm.
there's an aspect of us that is just like embodied, it's also my namesake,
Yeah,
um but to me, how I see us is like, do your best. It's that part, it's the part of
yeah.
doing your best. And interestingly enough, for me as an artist, I feel like in this front, when we're talking about music as a weapon,
Mhm,
we need musical medicine. That's
mm,
the solution. We need
mhm.
musical medicine. Of course, you can prevent yourself from hearing and receiving things that are
Yeah,
problematic, but we're going to be impacted by it in the collective, in the
yeah.
world, as we move through the world. But
Mhm,
we need more musical medicine. We need more positive vibrations, higher frequencies out in the world, whether that's your voice and you speaking the truth and uplifting the medicine, the remedy to all of the different things that we spoke on. We need more people to use their voice and to recognize the value of their voice.
Yeah.
That's very, very important. Now, when you put that with a beat, with frequency, I listened to a video of Arie actually when she was clarifying. She was talking about like music as frequency, why it's so powerful, and the way that it is magic in the sense that you're layering all these different things that create rhythm, and it's casting a spell. So if we go into that piece, yeah, let's go. I think another solution is the economics of the reality, right? Because that is a core issue, the survival mode, the get rich by any means necessary, get rich or die trying, like the same thing from the gangster rap era. Recognizing that these are the same people invested in the prison industrial complex that are perpetuating this music. They know exactly what they're doing. At this point, it's so transparent. Like, you want people to be shoplifting, get caught, and go to jail. They probably, if I wouldn't be surprised if they up the ante and the laws have changed around shoplifting. To be honest with you, because that's how strategic they are.
Yeah.
They probably already banking on the stock, the stock rising. So that being said, it's very intentional. It's very strategic. So on our side, we need to be also intentional and strategic. We can't be afraid of money. No more broke revolutionaries, but we need to enter into the space of like looking at the economy through the lens of Ma'at, which is actually something that I'm going to be sharing more about as well. But I think that that's two important points: music as a weapon, our culture as a weapon, and whatever facets you want to tap into those solutions, there's plenty. And then the economics as a solution, right? We need healing economies. We need to be circulating money. We need to be healing money. We need to be going beyond money. Like I said, food, clothing, shelter, security, energy, the means of survival. We need to be producing more and consuming less.
Yeah.
We need to be consuming and supporting the people who are part of that healing economy, the people who are operating with integrity, right? We need to circulate and allow the economy and the energy that our money represents to start going towards the world that we actually want, and not continue to perpetuate the problematic pieces of society.
Yeah. 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 I appreciate that. I appreciate you for being here. And just shout out to you, because you don't just talk about it. You're doing the work. So thank you for the work that you have already been doing in the community. So if you are new here, don't forget to subscribe to Ma'at Speaks. If you are not subscribed to Tahuti Ma'at, make sure you subscribe to Tahuti Ma'at. Thank you so much. So I just want to end with kind of just continuing, kind of building off of what you just said, because music, if most people don't know, like my background is in music. I've been singing, I don't know, since I can remember, like since a young age. I wanted to be the singer on stage, and singing has evolved for me because it's changed in the idea that I want the music that I produce now to be for our community and healing. So the space that I was in was different, where I come from, the background that I come from is a different type of music. And I know that I don't want to go back to that. So I've been working on evolving that space and bringing healing music to our community. So with that being said, we learn a lot of things through music. We learned how to read and write and identify our letters through music. So when somebody says that music is not that deep, I don't or that this song is not that deep, it really is that deep, because we learned who we are. We learned how to speak. Music is a spell, right? And we
it
can
penetrates the deepest part of you.
Yes, exactly. And it can condition you. And so I want us to understand that this is not just a critique on just Young Miami and her lyrics. It's a critique on the totality of what the music culture continues to do. And again, we ask ourselves, how are we actively participating in an industry that has told us that it's not for us? This is to myself too. I'm a fitness instructor. I play music in my classes. And sometimes I play music that people ask for, and I don't really vibe with the music. And so lately, I've been trying to position myself where I have playlists and music that is whoever going to show up in a line with the music. That's who shows up in a line. You don't always want to adhere to the people around you that is giving what is the like the popular opinion. We have to now look at how do we solve such a harmful environment, not just for ourselves but for the ones that come after us. So most of us learned our alphabet through music, right? And what else are we learning through our music? What are we reinforcing in our community? What patterns are being repeated? So the solution that I have, and I don't have anything that's really different than what my sister just said, but the one thing that I say is, how are you applying Ma'at to your daily life? And it's very simple. You ask yourself every day, like, how am I going to be intentional with my mind, with my body, with my energy, with who I come into contact with, the conversations that I'm keeping, the things that I'm giving my energy to, my attention to. And then at the end of the day, you ask yourself, did I accomplish what I set out to accomplish with my intentions? And then we do it every day. We judge ourselves every single day. And some days are more difficult than the others. And everyone is a mirror and a reflection of you. And so I'm going to end with that. And thank you, my sister, for being a beautiful reflection of me. And I
Thank
appreciate you
you. Thank you,
very much.
everyone.
And so we're going to end there. Love you all. Thank y'all for joining today.
We gotta cook something with the music though. The music
Yeah.
because that was the thing we talked about at the end, like right before we started. We were like, on our conversation, the one thing we didn't talk about was music. My aunt was my music teacher. She does music lessons. You know, like there's a reality of like how this becomes like we're living out the same thing. Like that's what I'm saying about living my aunt. We're living out the solution to this conversation. I'm so glad we did this today. Because that is an economy around healing specifically directed to everything we just talked about today. I didn't even see that until the very end of the conversation. So powerful.
It was funny because I didn't say it, but I was thinking it.
Powerful.
Yeah. And that's the duty of everyone here. Are you pouring your resources into the people who are actually trying to heal the community? You know,
do you have a link to like for people who might want to work with you on their vocal training or music?
So let me see if it's a direct link. It is
yes, this is my testimonial.
Thank you. All right, so I'll put it in the description as well, but here is it in the comments. That's the direct link. You hit the link. You know, I'm still I got to revamp my website. It's too much on my website, so I'm going to revamp it. But that's the link in there, and I'll put it in the description as well. You can also just email me at speakmaat@gmail.com. And we just set up a trial lesson. We do a 30-minute trial lesson. And then from there, we decide if we're going to work together. And that's what we do. I love teaching music. That's my one of my main things that I just absolutely love to do. And so, I thank you for that. Thank you for always pushing me. I appreciate you.
Well, I love everybody. That's my niece. We have this video.
We're gonna bring my sister back. And we're gonna have more conversations. This was great for me. So anyway, we're gonna end there. Love to everyone. Peace, and
Thank
we
you
will
so much
see
for having
you
me,
next
sis.
time.
Power.